Dark Souls! An absolutely fantastic game filled to the brim with creatures, lore, and most importantly, backstabbing. And I mean literal backstabbing. It's a strong, good tactic that pisses off all your opponents, but it's a bit harder than you think. Hold on, let's go back to the night clip. Is it even possible to pierce that guy's armor? Well, I say we find out. Well, what we would need to know first is how much force that armor can withstand. And for that, we need a formula to help us find that. And lo and behold, we have one. Oh dear. That's just a little bit confusing. And looking at the history of this formula, doesn't make it any better. It was originally meant for World War II bombshells. But let's just tweak this for our purposes. You see, T equals the thickness of armor penetrated in inches. W equals the weight of the shell, which we will be replacing with the sword's weight. D will equal the diameter of the shell, which will be replaced with the width of the sword. V is the striking velocity. Okay, it's not that bad. Note that the striking velocity of each weapon will be the same for my sake, just to make the math easier. Let's start with the Lothric Knights of, well, Lothric. Since there is no definite thickness of the armor, we will have to go off the real-life counterparts. And they look pretty similar to the knights of old, don't they? So it's safe to say that these big boys have pretty heavy armor on. The breastplate was usually around 3 to 4 millimeters thick, behind a bunch of padding. But we will pretend that the padding doesn't exist because it's easier on me, because the math is just going to be ridiculous. But how much force would it take to pierce his armor? To determine that, we will need to know the size of the Lothric broadsword itself. For simplicity's sake, let's say the Lothric broadsword is around 130 centimeters, 30 to 45 inches, which is a bit longer than a broadsword, but for my sake, we're keeping it the same. Which has a total speed of around 12 meters per second, according to online forums, and has a width on average of 3 inches. We plug that into the formula and we would get this. Let me translate this from maths to English. This means that a typical broadsword would penetrate less than 1 millimeter of the armor, merely just bouncing off harmlessly. It's anticlimactic in a way. I also tried this formula with a bunch of other weapons, and I got somewhat of the same results. None of the weapons I've tried, including the thieves' knives, sword, not even the world-famous Zweihander could penetrate the armor. Even though it was not possible to pierce the armor itself, there were ways to get around the armor. Instead of piercing through the armor itself, soldiers would cut or stab the exposed parts or joints in the armor, or even hold the sword by its blade and bludgeon their opponent to death with the hilt and grip. That's really all there is to it. Okay, so apparently after calling General Industries, they would not give me a formula to punch through their armor, even though they make tanks. I suppose that's kind of to be expected, huh? Jeez. If I'm not on a no-fly list somewhere in this world, someone's not doing their job.